Earl Jairo Buñag and I am here to address the problem number 1. So, the problem is, Mr. A has this estafa case and the case reached the Supreme Court. Unfortunately, he lost the case. As we all know, when a case reaches the Supreme Court, the same is published in every website discussing Philippine jurisprudence. Now, every time someone key in his name in the web search engine, the estafa case is displayed as one of its results. Due to such, Mr. A suffered humiliation and embarrassment from people who chance upon search result of his name. Because of this, he wants his name to be removed from such website, and he therefore invokes his constitutional right to the privacy. The issue is, can a person request that this name to be removed from such website pertaining to SC decided cases as the same is a violation of his rights to privacy? Why or why not? So the answer is here. As a researcher, we do believe that he can invoke his rights because this was violating against his privacy. Because according to National Privacy Commission, under the law, you have the right to suspend, withdraw, or order the blocking, removal, or destruction of your personal data. And this was supported by Torres in 2018. The Supreme Court expressly recognized the right to the privacy as a fundamental right guaranteed by the Constitution. But in the other hand, his wishes may not be granted because the NPC or the National Privacy Commission stated that the data concerned information prejudicial to the data subject unless justified by freedom of speech or expression or the press or otherwise authorized by the court of law. It means that the publishing of the website will be legal as long as it will be granted by the court. We do believe that this major concern on why he wants to remove his name from the website is to protect himself from misleading contents, and that may cause him mental depression and anxiety. This kind of privacy issue resolved 58% of 237 formal complaints according to Santos in 2020. But in other hand, there are many cases that did not resolve, especially in the complainants are poor one. Most of the complainants are just choosing to let it go because of the money and the time and the effort you need to exert to get justice, and this statement was supported by the Fine Law Teams 2018. Whether your privacy or has been violated, privacy issues are complicated and emotional, and will result highly continuous proceeding of court and hearings. Therefore, the researchers suggest that we everyone as an individual protect the privacy of each and everyone so that we will not forced to attend a very long trial that will cost monthly and time and effort. And that's all.
Identity theft is the crime of obtaining the personal or financial information of another person to use their identity to commit fraud, such as making unauthorized transactions or purchases. Identity theft is committed in many different ways, and its victims are typically left with damage to their credit, finances, and reputation. The person whose identity has been stolen may suffer adverse consequences, especially if they are falsely held responsible for the perpetrator's actions. There are several types of identity theft. Number 1 is the financial identity theft. In financial identity theft, someone uses another person's identity or information to obtain credit, goods, services, or benefits. This is the most common form of identity theft. The second is medical identity theft. In medical identity theft, someone poses as another person to obtain free medical care. The third is synthetic identity theft. Synthetic identity theft is a type of fraud in which criminal combines real and fake information to create a new identity, which is used to open fraudulent accounts and make fraudulent purchases. Next is the child identity theft. In child identity theft, someone uses a child's identity for various forms of personal gain. This is common as children typically do not have information associated with them that could pose obstacles for the perpetrator. The next is the tax identity theft. Tax identity theft occurs when someone uses your personal information, including your SSS number, to file a bogus state on federal tax return in your name and collect a refund. The last identity theft is the criminal identity theft. In this identity theft, a criminal possesses as another person during an arrest to try avoid a summon and prevent the discovery of a warrant issued in their real name or to avoid an arrest conviction record.
The effects of identity theft can last anywhere between a few days and several years, depending on the type of theft and quickly you notice and address it. However, identity theft has ramifications that go beyond the personal. It's also the most convenient way for criminals to acquire access to network and data. Once a bad actor gets a member of your organization's identity information, they can use phishing or ransomware assaults to target them. Identity theft is currently one of the most rapidly expanding crimes in the United States. Each year, the identities of up to 41 million Americans are stolen. 35% of fraud victims are Americans over the age of 60. Identity theft can harm your credit score, your cash, and take up a lot of your time. Some criminals work for large international crime organizations that fund terrorism for financial gain. And with the advancement of technology, the information fraudsters need is much more readily available. Recommendation and conclusion. Freeze your credit. It's free to freeze your credit and unfreeze it when you want to open an account, and it provides the best protection against an identity theft using your data to open a new account. Be alert to phishing and spoofing. Scammers can imitate government or company calls and emails that appear to be official could be attempts to steal your personal information. Monitor financial and medical statements. Examine the financial statements. Make certain you are aware of every transaction. Know when bills are due and call to inquire if you have not received one. To avoid healthcare fraud, review explanation of benefits statements to ensure you understand the services given. Protect your mobile devices. Use a banking app rather than a mobile browser for banking. Use strong passwords and add an authentication step. To create and maintain complicated, unique password for your accounts, use a password manager. Passwords should not be reused. You can lessen your risk by using an authenticator app. Don't rely on security questions to protect your accounts. Your mother's maiden name and the name of your pet are both easy to find.
Good day everyone, my name is Clare Delfinado, and the question number 3 is, what is the due process and its aspects? The due process, it is the right to fair and objective process in judicial matters, and it is according to Martin 2020. It includes both the right to a fair trial and the right to an effective remedy. In both rights are connected. This means that the law must be enforced fairly and equitably to everyone, including citizens convicted of crimes. The conduct of legal processes in accordance with defined rules and principles under a system of law for the enforcement and protection of private rights. In each case, due process entails the government exercising its powers and accordance with the laws permissible and sanctioned limits, as well as recognize protections for the protection of individuals' rights. According to Parker Jerry L. 2020 and James G. Martin 2020, the due process clause of the 5th and 14th Amendments. 5th and 14th Amendments are important because, among liberty, many things, they declare that before any person can be accused of any crime or wrongdoing, he or she must be allowed due process to prove his or her innocence. And without due process, all decisions related to an individual's innocence or guilt are thus null and void. The two aspects law involves two types of processes. First is the procedural due process. Second is the substantive due process. The substantive due process, which requires the intrinsic validity of the law in interfering with the rights of the person to his life, liberty or property, and procedural due process, which consists of the two basic rights of notice and hearing, as well as the guarantee of being heard by an impartial and competent tribunal. Thank you.
What is due process exactly? According to Delfinado and Britannica, the editors of Encyclopedia, the due process refers to the conduct of judicial processes in accordance with established norms and principles in a system of jurisprudence for the enforcement and protection of private rights. In each scenario, due process entails the government exercising its powers in the accordance with the law's permissible and sanctioned limits, as well as recognize safeguards for the preservation of individual rights. Both civil and criminal cases are subject to due process. Individuals in countries with established legal system believe that their constitutional rights will be applied fairly to them. This expectation of due process depends how people expect to interact with their local, state, and federal governments, specifically that their rights will not be violated. Over decades of continuous interpretation by the Supreme Court, the meaning of due process as it applies to substantive and procedural legislation has developed. Today, a law has met the due process criteria if it can fairly be regarded to promote the public welfare and the means chosen have a reasonable relationship to legitimate public interest. If a legislation aims to regulate a basic right, such as the freedom to travel or the right to vote, it must pass the compelling interest test, which is a more stringent judicial review. Economic legislation is often sustained if the state can demonstrate that it will benefit the public in some way. What is the difference between substantive and procedural due process? Substantive due process determines whether a law violates constitutional protection. Procedural due process refers to how the law is carried out. Thank you.